So, hi, my name is Neşet. I am a PhD student in the University of Auckland, and I will present this talk. This is a joint work with the following names that you see on the screen. So, I am going to talk about an analysis for a sentiment prediction task via transformer-based attention scores. And our long-term motivation is working on towards to capturing long-term dependencies. And this is a preliminary work to understand some basic components of this problem. Let's get started. In this paper, we were inspired by methods that humans use to perform reading tasks. As a human, we are not giving equal attention to every word during reading. In other words, we learn to skip words of lower importance by participating reading tasks. And indeed, this skipping process does not affect our understanding significantly. For example, according to this study, about 40% of the words can be skipped without substantial loss of understanding. When we look at corresponding skim reading processes from machine reading perspective, we can see that there are some studies that aim to understand this. In particular, some deep learning-based approaches have been included skim reading strategies. For example, Yu et al. In 2017 trained long short-term memory models to predict how many words can be skipped while performing a sentiment analysis task. What they found that the model can ignore several words and it can be still accurate as the original model. Indeed, sometimes more accurate than the non-skip models. In addition to that, as it is shown in Hahn and Keller's study, simulation of human skipping process, as I remember, they used a kind of Monte Carlo-based simulation methods. This simulation achieved the same result for sentiment analysis tasks. A couple of years ago, the Transformer Attention All You Need paper was published, and it became one of the most influential work in NLP history. Indeed, almost all areas in deep learning have been tried to use the idea presented in that paper in order to increase their models' performances. The key novelty in the Transformers model was the self-attention mechanism. This mechanism measures how important every word in the sequence is to the rest of the words via attention calculations. It's worth to saying at this point that because of the high computational cost of the attention mechanism, transformer-based models usually limit the maximum length of the input sequence. It is typically 512 tokens. And this is still an open problem in the area. Now let's briefly look at how the attention scores are calculated, since it will be our main tool in this study. So the transformer models in NLP usually take a sequence of text as their input, and this input is pre-processed to become word tokens or sub-word tokens. And each of token corresponding to a multidimensional vector representation. Like other parameters in the model, these representations change during the training time, and they are stable during inference for downstream tasks. Then these vector representations linearly project as query, key, and value, which has fewer dimensions than the original inputs. In the next step, the dot product of queries and keys is taken, and which follows some scaling and regularization process, such as dividing it by square root of the keys dimension and applying softmax. At the end of this process, a matrix is obtained which contains attention scores of the input words, and these scores used for desired downstream tasks. One of the well-known examples of the transformer architecture is the bidirectional encoder representations from transformer model, also known as BERT. The later BERTs for many NLP tasks are dominated by this model. and it will be our primary model in this talk. The version of BERT varies depending on layer number and input style. In our experiments, we used a version of BERT which has 12 layers and 12 attention heads in each layer. And it was pre-trained on book corpus, a data set containing about 11,000 unpublished books and English Wikipedia. As a data set, we used IMDb data set during our experiments. This data set contains movie reviews collected from the IMDb website with positive or negative sentiment, as you can see one example on the screen. There are 50,000 data points in this data set, and we fine-tuned the pre-trained BERT with this IMDb data set. Half of the data were used for training and the other half, 25,000, for testing. We generated attention scores for each token in the text by using the self-attention hands in the first and the last layers. The attention weights from 12 attention heads were added together, resulting in a single attention matrix. Then we added entries of each column of the concluded single matrix to obtain an attention score for each token. In other words, we added all the entries of each column, the concluded single matrix, and this is produced by the self-attention heads of each layer. We use these scores for filtering purposes by applying different percentages, as we will see in the next slide. So the figure shows the effect of filtering based on the attention values from either the first or the last layer. As it can be seen from the figure, the first layer selections, indicated by the blue line, was more effective than filtering by the last layer, which is indicated by the orange line. And interestingly, the top 1% of the tokens selected by the first layer achieve more than 70% accuracy on the test set. The same figure is less than 40% for the last layer selection. It is also worth to compare to human skipping process, which was about 40% skipping in the Hunt and Keller study. This figure here is about 40% accuracy according to first layer, that give us just about 2% less accuracy than non-skipping, about 92% in this case. And this is quite parallel to Hunt and Keller findings. Secondly, we were interested in which tokens were kept by the filtering process from part of speech point of view. As it can be seen from the second figure, nouns and verbs are similar regardless of the amount of filtering, but the proportion of adjectives dramatically increases, which makes intuitive sense from a human skim reading perspective. So we have two fundamental findings for this study. First, we showed that the first layer of BERT can be used as a filter and give remarkably effective sequence selection for the sentiments prediction test. And secondly, we showed that the distribution of part of speech changes by the layers are increased and token are increased. And we also showed that adjectives are the most persistent part of speech in the filtering process, which is not quite unsurprisingly. So there have been several studies focused on computational reduction methods for long sequence in the transformer architecture. In this study, we have taken a simple approach. Rather than modifying or creating a new architecture, we use original architecture of the BERT. And we use the model components to understand how much content is needed. As a future work, we intend to benefit from similar inductive biases in order to reduce long distance dependency costs for other downstream tasks. Thank you very much for this 10 minutes. And yeah, I think I said what I need to say. Thank you so much.